Hello, whale community, and welcome to another episode of the Makersplace X Whale series, where we are talking today about the Worldwide Walls Initiative presenting NFT for Good. And we have some of the artists on the project joining us today. We have Jasper Wong and Rose Martin. Welcome. Thank you both for being here. Let's see. We have Wooden Wave as well. Let's add you to the stream. And we will have, as other artists pop in, we'll be able to add them to the stream as well and talk about this amazing project that we have. And I'm going to post for the Discord all of the links to their social medias as well as the project itself in the chat. So that way you can check it out as we're going along. So first up, thank you all so much for being here. How are you today?
We're good.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thank you
Good to see
all
you guys.
so much for being here. We are discussing the Worldwide Walls Hawai project, which is formerly known as POWWOW. And it's a Hawaii-based organization of global street art fame. So hosting the first NFT-based gallery at Makersplace, which is an amazing thing. So seeing all of the, in real life, huge mural art now transitioning into the metaverse, which is a really exciting concept. And the NFT for Good initiative is going to provide the Worldwide Walls Hawai organization with donations of up to 10% of the proceeds to work toward community beautification projects in underserved neighborhoods next year, which is really exciting as well. So I know that this is something that is not necessarily, unique to this location, as Jasper had been telling me a little bit earlier about some other mural projects that they were doing in beautification throughout other cities. But for this one, how did you all get involved in this? Maybe we'll start with Jasper and kind of move our way down on the order here. So you can tell me a little bit about, yourself as an artist and how you got involved in this particular initiative.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been, I guess, trying to get my name out there and work on NFTs for like since the beginning of this year. I would say the first person to get me exposed to that world was probably James Sheen. My friend James Sheen sold his first NFT on Foundation, and then my friend Human then invited me to join and partake. And so I've been learning about it and trying to understand it better since then. And Ellen from HTDC reached out to me, which is a organization out here that pushes new technology in Hawaii and trying to get more people to get involved. And so she wanted to get more local artists involved in crypto and in the NFT world. So we're like, well, who should we work with? Because we should be partnering with one of the platforms that are out there. Makerspace being one of the better platforms within the NFT sphere. So we reached out to Makerspace, and they were down to host us and support us for this project. So myself and Makerspace, we co-created a group of artists that we thought would be great for that first release, which includes Woes and Wooden Wave and Shard, Tuiasoa, as well as Lucky Olelo. And for many of them, they're actually releasing their very first NFT, so it'll be their Genesis release. And so we just kept, so we're hoping to sort of do more, so this one's, a Made in Hawaii collection, and we want to do more Made in Hawaii collection, hopefully also support other local artists in different cities, because with our festival, with our organization, our nonprofit, we do work in 20 cities around the world. And so we're hoping to sort of be a platform and assist artists in entering the NFT world.
Couldn't find my mute button. That's super exciting, Jasper. Thank you so much for that background there and letting us know. And I'm really excited to hear that these are going to be a lot of the Genesis NFT pieces for folks as well. Like, what a cool experience. Not only does it have, a positive impact in the community, but it also is going to be a really, kind of groundbreaking step in the metaverse for people. So that's really cool. And let's move to Woes and see a little bit more about what you've got going on as well.
Aloha. Yeah, this is my first and a real NFT job. I've released one with Secret Walls where we did like a digital battle, and the winner from the digital battle got to do an NFT. So I took the dude out and got to able to rock an NFT. But this is like my very first official NFT with a true piece of artwork that I've done. And yeah, I've known Jasper for a while. I've been involved in a lot of the POWWOW Hawaiis and a few of them across the planet. So I'm very honored for him to invite me for this, and I'm excited for this. This is awesome.
Very excited to have you here and also to hear about the battles. That's a fun story. That was so good. And Wooden Wave as well. Welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves there and, the experience, not just of your art history, but also, joining this initiative?
Thanks. Yeah, so we're a husband and wife art team, and we paint murals. So we've been part of Jasper's Mural Festival, Worldwide Walls since 2013. Yeah. So done a lot of projects together. It's been really fun. Our work is based on the idea of sustainable treehouse communities. So we paint murals of tree houses, but they have, solar panels and water catchment systems, as well as like slides or zip lines or fun things like that. If you're going to live in a tree house, what are the things you would need for your energy, for your food? We've got green roofs on there. But then we also play around with them, like how can we do them in fun ways? So for this project, we're super excited to be dropping our first NFTs with Jasper and Makersplace. And this one is a tree house in the shape of a boombox. And then also a tree house that's kind of, I guess it's more of a clubhouse that's over the ocean. And yeah, I think whenever Jasper reaches out to us for projects, we immediately know that he's working with good people and that it's going to be, something that's worth our time and, something that's really fun. He's known us for a long time. So I think he knows when we're going to be a good fit for a client or a project. And he's always got, a way to give back to the community as well, which we love those kinds of projects.
And I think what's kind of cool, there's like a juxtaposition of murals and NFTs being these forums for the public to access art in a way that, goes outside of maybe like conventional gallery concepts. And so you've got like, we're really used to the muralscape. We've seen POWWOWs, we've seen Jasper, and we've seen all of our other mural friends like do this very public art form, and it's cool to be entering into a new sphere of exciting possibility for art to be spread around the world in a different way. And so it's super exciting to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for joining. I think that what you mentioned with the accessibility and having kind of with murals, they're a very public piece of art. It's something that, regardless of your status, like if you are in the area, you can experience the art and you kind of take away that experience without having to, be in any particular position within society. And that's kind of what we're seeing with the NFT space, having the creators joining, and even if they didn't have that traditional art background or the art following, and they're joining and they're finding success. And we're finding people who wouldn't have traditionally thought of themselves as art collectors now getting into the NFT space and being able to collect art and support artists and experience art in whole new ways. And so I love that, you've mentioned that with this juxtaposition of murals versus NFTs and being able to support the communities, which is a really cool thing. So with that, I think that's a good jumping point to kind of talk a little bit more about that. So with the NFT for Good project, I know that we had done an overview, noting that we're going to look at some beautification of, spaces in Hawaii. Can you tell us a little bit more details about that and, kind of, I guess, what we're looking at as the outcome of this project? Because we're beautifying the metaverse with the NFTs, and then where are we going from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So our festival that we've been doing for the past decade is really focused on community beautification. We love doing public art in underserved communities. The neighborhood that we've been working in for the past decade in Hawaii is called Kakako, and when we first started working there was nothing there. And the art helped to be one of the ways to revitalize that community. And as we move forward, we decided that we should be focusing on other underserved communities within Hawaii. The next one that we're looking at is doing it in the Kalihi and Palama area and doing murals on public housing. And public housing tends to be communities that are oftentimes forgotten, and people tend to avoid, and tends to hold stigma as well. And so we feel that as artists, we could dedicate our time to paint walls that are for the community. So such as public housing, community centers, schools, public schools, etc. We've been actually doing a lot of that type of work in Worcester, and we started doing public housing projects there, and as well as painting schools there. And when we first started doing work out there with our team, Jess and Lisa, we had people telling us that it's not safe there, don't go there, you shouldn't be doing public art projects there. We had a lot of pushback, but we pushed forward. Because at the end of the day, most of these communities are filled with families. And they deserve art, they deserve care, they deserve people to give back to them. One thing that was beautiful that happened there, one incident was that a mother of 2 daughters came up to us. And her older daughter was always afraid to tell people where she was from because people would judge her because she was from public housing. And her younger daughter, she told us that her younger daughter told someone where she lived while we were doing the project there. And that person responded and asked, oh, is that where all the painting is? Is that where all the murals are? And that shift in perception meant everything to her. And because people in public housing, they don't choose to live there oftentimes. Oftentimes they need to be there. And the stigma that's sort of associated to public housing is oftentimes unfair. And so we want to give back to our own communities here. And so a percentage of the proceeds from these sales of these NFTs will go towards our community beautification project and education project that we're hoping to do next year during the summertime of 2022. I also started teaching at a community center. I started teaching art in that area because a lot of our public schools, the first things they cut out when there's budget cuts is art and music, because those are seen as secondary, as hobbies. And so I've been trying to give back by teaching art, teaching free art classes to the students there. And one thing that has happened because of COVID is that there's also a very obvious sort of access inequity. When kids had to distance learn, we didn't consider the fact that there's a lot of students in these communities that don't have internet, that don't have computers, that don't have iPads. And when they had to distance learn, they had no way to learn. So many students in these areas either dropped out of the system altogether, they're no longer going to school anymore, or they're 2 grades or sometimes 3 grades behind. And also due to COVID, there's a lot of budget cuts across the board in the Department of Education. So the first thing that they're going to remove is all the art and music classes first. And so then we're trying to give back by providing resources, especially within the creative field, to these students in these areas. And so some of the funds will go towards that as well. I recently helped to raise money through the help of Karen Blangiardi, the mayor's wife, Creative Cities, and Hawaiian Airlines, to raise money to buy iPads for a lot of these students, because a lot of them didn't have any. And so we're trying to find ways to use art, and selling NFTs and being part of Makerspace and being part of this community has been a great way to sort of raise funds for these kinds of projects. Because oftentimes when we do these kinds of projects, we're beholden to sponsors and to grants. And that's not a guarantee every year. Every year we're like, oh, how do we raise enough money to do these projects? Because they don't come cheap. The cost to imagine right now, what was at Basel, right? All these places, if we're doing our own, if we're going to paint our own wall, we have to rent a lift, which is going to cost $1 to $2 grand a week, depending on what the lift is. We have to get materials and paint. And nowadays there's actually a paint shortage across the board. Or scaffolding, we have to get flights, housing. And at the end of the day, these murals are for the community. No one's selling tickets for people to see murals. So we put a lot into it, both our own time and labor and financially. and it's for the community, and we don't really like make money from them. So these NFTs and this world and the digital art world and NFTs and crypto is helping us sort of find ways to be more self-sustainable, as well as we're trying to do public art and community projects too.
I think that's really important because, as you mentioned, not only is art and music kind of being cut from curriculums as budgets are being cut, but art and music are a lot of, those creative outlets that people and especially children need. They need ways to express themselves and connect their emotions to the rest of reality, because a lot of times, like, there's no way to express an emotion except perhaps visually or auditorily. And so those are really important things, and being able to give people the outlet and then the hope is what I think is a really powerful thing. And so having, in your case where you're beautifying cities and you're making murals and you're providing those, visual creative outlets for people, that is, more than just beauty. That's hope, and that's, a future, because it gives people, the motivation sometimes to be able to go on and, continue their day to day in creating. And that's really important. And that's something that I think, as I'm seeing people nodding, perhaps, you have input that you'd like to add with that as well. But that seems like definitely a really big thing with the project and what it is that you're doing here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
one thing that we always think about with art is people are so busy in their everyday lives, and they might not always have interactions with art, or maybe they feel intimidated by those white walled galleries, or they maybe can't afford all the time to go to museums, every weekend or, so often. But public art has that power to bring joy and that, visual stimulation and that connection to not just the artist's depiction, but just like the storytelling behind it as well for the different images. There's different characters or different scenery. There's kind of something for everyone with public art, I feel like. But the great part is that you can just stumble upon it in your everyday life. You're just going to the grocery store and then you happen to see a small mural around the corner, or maybe a big one somewhere. And it's just something that's super accessible, and it's for everyday people.
I think also there with murals, and perhaps it can also be translated to this digital medium of NFTs. Murals, a big draw is the process that you can see happen. Most times when you go to an art show, you don't get to see the painter in their studio, figuring things out, problem solving creatively. With murals, you can, and that's a really big part of the social and community aspect. And I think also with digital mediums now, like you see a lot of people, they're turning time lapses of their work into NFTs, and really embracing the idea of like, what is an NFT? What is a mural? Like it's very broad spectrum of creative output that you can put forth. So super excited to see the connections continue to grow.
Yeah, people love watching the process. That's one of the biggest things when it comes to murals. And on top of that, this project is awesome because I've been painting as a full-time artist for over 20 years, and my biggest projects were the projects that are linked to this kind of vibe. Like I've painted in Bogota, like a bunch of elementary schools, and just the joy of the kids seeing it. And I've even heard, like, I remember one of the kids coming up to me and saying, "Oh, the bad man's gonna paint on it," meaning that the taggers are gonna come and, mess it up. But I recently heard that all the murals I've done in Bogota, a lot of them are still up, and the neighborhood protects them because it's welcoming and brings people around. You know what I mean? And I think this is awesome that this is going to be to help neighborhoods and stuff, and inspire kids to do what we do, and murals and art is like the bridge, like traveling the world. Like I meet a lot of people that don't speak the same language, but the language is right there on the wall, you know what I mean? And you can connect with people that way.
That definitely is a very strong connection, whether or not you have language to do it. Like having that, visual representation and scrolling through your Instagram, like there are so many bears and while they, maybe are largely the same character, they have so many different expressions. And that's something that as a human, I'm walking through and I'm looking at these, like I can relate to these expressions and the different emotions that they're evoking. And that's something that, when you mentioned that the communities are protecting the art, like that's something that people do. I believe, like, this one has so many different emotions in one, like people can relate to that and connect to it, and it validates their own experience as well. And that's something that's really exciting. And I think that, looking kind of at a lot of, the art that, even Wooden Wave had, as we're looking through and kind of seeing the different pieces that they've done, having these connections and having the characters that you mentioned, that people can then not only, take the story that exists and is presented to them, but elaborate on that and kind of build their own story from it. That's a magical thing, especially providing this where, in a lot of cases, it was, the community housing or, the things that were a little bit more bleak and dreary and not very creative, and then suddenly giving it a new life and a new representation. Those are, I think that does a lot more for a community than people sometimes realize.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it firsthand, like we've seen communities change just through the power of putting paint on a wall. At the end of the day, it's like a very simple act, like let's paint a wall. Doesn't it's not like, other things where like, oh, let's build this big playground. We gotta go through this long process. We have to hire architects, engineers. There's liability issues. It's like, there's a bunch of blank walls here. Let's paint on them. A blank wall at the end of the day doesn't speak to anyone. It's just there. But once you paint a mural on it, it becomes a landmark. People are drawn to it. We've seen firsthand that it brings foot traffic to a community, and because people are trying to find the murals, and that foot traffic alone can make a community, that neighborhood, safer, because there's just more people around. It feels more vibrant. It feels less bleak. And then as people are trying to discover the murals, they discover small businesses in the area. They discover restaurants. They discover shops, and they partake in them. They go to them. And now people are like, oh, wow, there's more people going here. Like, let's open up our own store, our own spot, our own studio. Let's live here. And so that the community at Kaka'ako is a proof of concept of what we've been doing for the past decade, and seeing that community grow and become a live work neighborhood. Whereas before, no one was there. It was a community that you kind of like accidentally got lost in. You're like, I don't know how to get out of here. So it definitely changed a lot. We also did a project in Kathmandu, Nepal. And we painted a bunch of murals at a school for homeless children. So the school for homeless children, how it works is that they provide 2 hot meals a day, and that's how they get kids into the door. And then from there, they are able to capture their attention and teach them. But the schools themselves they look so forlorn. It's not very inspiring for kids. So we painted every surface, the interior, exterior, all the classrooms, the ceilings, the cafeteria. We even got shoes donated to them via Play. We got cleaning supplies and personal hygiene supplies and everything, and it kind of really meant a lot to the students that were there. And it also meant a lot to the artists to be able to sort of provide opportunities to like give back to these communities that are halfway across the globe. Yeah, but then we've seen it firsthand, like just how much like just art can change communities, and just going into those communities, like as Wo said, in places like Bogota and painting it means a lot to them and to us.
And that, I think, is a really interesting thing, because here in the whale community, like one of the things that we've always done, since we were started, was trying to, like the tagline was like creating whales through whale, but really what it means is that helping people, kind of no matter what their current position is, create a better experience for themselves, and improve their situation in life. And so, similar to the art that you're doing, like that's something that I think we have a really strong relationship there, because we're trying to find ways. And a lot of what we've been doing is, interviews like this, where we're bringing the art to the community and kind of bringing these different experiences and showing people, that no matter where you're at, there are different ways to improve the community that you're in, and there are different ways to improve your own situation, and, find ways, so maybe in the case of, you create murals and you're improving, the school for the children, and then they see that and they take that hope and, can maybe inspires them to create something. And, so then it gives them some productive way to output the energies that they have and those emotions and those feelings and kind of channel that into, in this case, maybe creating their own art or, finding ways that really, are more productive uses of the energies that people have. And that's really, I think, an exciting and a magical thing, because without direction, people are lost.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Very much agreed.
That's really big.
I think that's something that's pretty cool about the whole NFT art landscape that's developing, is just that it's increased, I think, the output of artists just as creatives, finding a new way that you can put your work out there, and just the possibilities of this kind of digital medium for art just kind of opens up things like animation or different ways of augmenting your art, or making it into an edition, reaching a new audience. I think it's kind of cool how I see like a lot of high schools getting high school aged people getting into NFTs, whereas fine art might not be something that's in their budget or something they even really care about, but because of the internet, you're just seeing all these images and it's just so fun. I think if I had been in high school and I'd seen all the NFT art that's available, I totally would have jumped in, because there's something for everybody.
It really reduces the whole I guess the impediments of entry into art that sometimes can be tough to get over, or to even like see yourself represented on the other side as being an artist. That can be difficult in certain cases, like really difficult. But I think what Roxy's talking about is the ease of just putting yourself out there has become easier. And we always say that as artists, and as whenever you're mentoring another creative, you really want to encourage them to put their work out there and to not wait until things are like exactly how they see it or in their mind, or is perfect.
Yeah.
Just like get your work out there and keep improving yourself. And so this is what we're doing, is through this collaboration and through murals, you're always getting visuals out there, you're getting color therapy out there, you're getting good vibes out there, and that's just increasing the tide that's raising all these ships, and that's what we like.
I think that's really important, as you mentioned, like getting those vibes out there. And speaking of getting vibes out there, we actually have a question from the community wanting to know, and I have them up on the screen now, wanting to know from each of you which piece you chose for this collection and why. So we can see them scroll through. And I know that these will be released tomorrow. That's kind of the launch date for it. So we're just getting the preview now. But if you could each tell us a little bit about your piece and, why this was the piece chosen for the NFT for Good project. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, sure. So I created a brand new piece for this project. So it's not an existing one. I decided to make a new one for this release. It's called Saturdays, and I think it's supposed to represent sort of actually our childhood. Kids that were like maybe lived through the 90s, like where we didn't have streaming services yet. Saturday mornings were very important to us. Like, at least for myself, like I would wake up early every Saturday morning because that's when there would be a stream of cartoons that would play nonstop. And that's the only time through the week that you would get consistent amount of cartoons that you could sort of watch. And if you missed a Saturday, you were kind of screwed because you wouldn't know what happened the previous week. And so hopefully they would do a replay at some point, but it was just sort of like watching and just trying to like figure out what's going on. And so I grew up with those animations. I have a tattoo of Hanna-Barbera on my leg, that kind of honors the work that they've done, because they were so prolific through their career, right? Creating so much amazing characters and stories, that still are loved to this day. I also love smear frames. When they try to create animation, they kind of just stretch the faces out rather than trying to like make things look fast, everything's kind of, and then when you pause it in those spots, they have these crazy faces. And so I kind of like did a lot of smear frame, like my own sort of smear frames to try to like maybe make it look a bit more active, but it also makes it weird because you see here like Bambi kind of has like a super long nose, which looks fun. I've always loved smear frames. Like when I was a kid, I used to have a VHS and I would make it go like really slow so I could see all the different frames. It probably broke all the VHS that we had on all the VHS players, you know, when I was a kid. But I used to like play. I used to watch Dragon Ball in slow mo when I was a kid, just to like watch them like do the Kamehameha really slow and then them exploding and stuff. I don't know. It was something like that I loved doing when I was a child. So those influences affected my work to this day, and this piece is to honor it. I split my larger piece, this colorful one, into 4 pieces. And they're an edition of 10 each. And if you collect all 4 of them, you get that full one for free.
Which is the mostly black and white.
No, the big
the
colorful
full one. Okay.
The big colorful one is split into 4. And then if you buy if you collect all 4, then you get the big one for free.
Nice.
And I'm trying to go for, since I'm editioning it, I'm trying to go for like a lower price point. Like I'm starting at like 0.1. Previously, I've been like starting at around like 0.3 or 0.5. But this one I wanted to make it sort of a bit more accessible in that regard. And I was in the middle of the night last night trying to mint all of them when minting was as cheap as possible. Like I'm like at 1 or 2 a.m. just like sitting there like minting. I was like, what's the price now?
Yep, I've got my browser, one of those gas apps that tracks. I know this pain having to stay.
Yeah, I'm like, what's happening now? Like, and then like I'll be like, oh, it's good now, and then it jumps like, oh no, it's back up. I'm like, I have to wait again.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was doing that late last night, trying to like mint all of them. But yeah, I'll release it tomorrow. Hopefully, you know, I last week I did a release with Alex Solis, the Gen Z, Alex MDC. We did it on Nifty Gateway, and that went well. And I've been doing a lot more NFT releases in China with my agents out there. So I'm trying to slowly, what I've learned from being a part of the NFT community and trying to build my name in there and doing more of this work is that it's almost like restarting your art career in a new world, because a lot of my collectors and fan base doesn't really cross over. So it's so being a part of things like this, you know, with the Well community and sharing our work is huge, and it helps a lot, you know, sort of get our names out there and continue building. It's also fun because I can do like for example, like this kind of work, like I don't really do often because I end up doing a lot of commission work for different brands, and so it's fun to sort of break out and try to like do something fun that I normally wouldn't get a chance to.
Gives you a little bit of extra freedom. And then there was this super rare 1 of 1, I think, which I was a little excited to have back too soon earlier too.
Yeah.
As
I'm
your
doing that
Saturdays.
1 of 1. Yeah.
Which is exciting because we're seeing, you know, kind of this similar characters.
Yeah, it's the same ones, but just black and white.
Yeah, but it's interesting how different they look without color, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's almost, you know, that was something that I had seen actually with a photographer, whereas they change the lighting, the same character can look completely different and be, you know, so unique. So having, you know, these, and I really like the little wand here. Actually, that's the thing I think that sticks out the most to me in this. But this is exciting to see, you know, that not only are you making it accessible, but you also have, for those people who are a little bit more discerning collectors, like the super rare 1 of 1. So kind of, you know, you clearly are understanding the NFT space, and that, you know, you're appealing to different types of collectors and kind of having the ability to, you know, connect to folks that are, as you mentioned, outside of your normal fan base, but also for those people who are in your fan base and also getting into NFTs, this is a good starting point.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really exciting. And let's see, I think we'll apply the same question to WOWs and see which piece you are adding. And let's see, I don't have it up there, so we'll go back to the main bit. There it is. Just scroll through and see which piece you're adding and kind of why you've chosen this one. Here we have the bears.
Nice. So the the image I chose was actually a design I did for a rug. I did a rug design, and I really wanted to do a new image, but I've been so busy. I've been traveling a lot and doing other art stuff. So Jasper hit me up. I wanted to use my classic. I call them. Well, the name of it's like a series of murals that I do called Wall of Fear and Fur and Fang, and I've been painting these panda bears forever. And at first, it was just like for fun and shock factor because no one ever sees angry panda bears because they can't make facial expressions like a grizzly bear. So when I started traveling around the world, because I do like to paint other things, but when I started to be able to like travel and stuff, I was just like, okay, the pandas are on a decline, so I'm just gonna populate the planet with my panda bears. You know what I mean? So I wanted to release one that had a bunch of them on there, and it's fun. Everyone has a different, a lot. The bears are actually reflections of me in different facial expressions. I do like they do end up turning into who I am, and they're not actually angry. I tell people I call them laughing bears. They look like they're laughing to me, and that's the reaction I get from people. It's never like a scared thing. They're just like, oh my gosh, they look so vicious, but I just tell them, oh, they're laughing. That's a bunch of homies just kicking it and laughing. So
Well, and I think
oh
without context, like an anger and a laughing expression are very similar. So you need that context to know what's
yeah.
happening.
So yeah, it's a fun thing, and I like painting them. I'm still not tired of painting them, and I love that I can put them all over the world. And it's fun. It becomes kind of like a Where's Waldo. I always get people tagging me around the planet, like in Rotterdam or Berlin, and they send me DMs of my murals that they find. They just stumble upon.
And that's fun having a consistent character. I think that makes it perhaps, as you mentioned, a little easier because people are looking for something, that's very distinctly related to you and your presence. And so that's really exciting that
Yes.
they're kind of
Painted a
going
panda
out.
together at the zoo in Taipei, and there was a
Oh,
panda
that's
in it too.
it's cool because that one ends up as a screensaver on Google. Like people will just be at home and be like, "Look, it's Aaron's work on my TV," and it's the Taipei Zoo mural. So,
Yeah, it was it's because I submitted it to the Google Arts and Culture
oh man, thanks, man. That
platform.
was awesome.
Yeah, so I sent it in from like, oh, this, and then like labels them as like it's sort of to get the word out of all the just like sites around the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I always get tagged in that photo. It's cool.
That's fun. And it's I would say I'd really like to acknowledge that the relationship that you all have here and the support for each other is really awesome to see. And that's something that, I think we see in the metaverse as well as like, talent is important, but really networking and that connection with other humans is, maybe more important because, that's not only fulfilling, but it's helping people grow and progress in whatever spaces they're in. And I'm just excited to see that between you all. Let's hear the story from the Wooden Wave team for your piece as well. Let's see.
right.
I'm gonna bring up a bigger picture of it.
There we go. Want to start?
Okay, sure. So the concept behind this one is it's a boombox treehouse, and as with a lot of our treehouse murals, they're actually unpopulated by any characters, but they're full of life in the sense that you can look into the living room that's above the tape deck, and you can see that there's like a couch and there's like a lounge kind of set up, and there's maybe coffees set out on the table. There's a full quiver of surfboards and skateboards and like an arcade game in the right boombox speaker. And so what we're really trying to do is create like an implied narrative of fun, of kind of off the grid DIY Peter Pan, Lost Boys-esque, living adventure, and mix in the concepts of sustainability and growing your own food. Like if you were going to live off the grid, if you're going to live in this rad boombox, how would you survive? How would you feed yourself? Oh, you probably should have a rooftop garden, aquaponics, water catchment system to make sure you're eating.
Right. And then we what's fun for us with the architecture of these things is taking the object that we're drawing inspiration from and then flipping what the use of that thing is. So for here with the boombox, at the top there where you see the handle excuse me, of the boombox, that's like an observation deck. So there's a little ladder where you can go on top and just take
That's
in
the
the
best
view.
view in the house for sure.
Yeah, of the forest and the sunset. And then the little dials that normally would have been for the sound or the tuning, those are water catchment or like a little hot tub up there. And then the buttons where you would have pressed for, you know, play, pause, rewind.
Treble.
That's the rooftop garden where you have the little system of aquaponics up there. And then the screen that would have showed the numbers for the radio dial, that's where the solar panels are. So everything has a function within the space. And we like to be punny when we can. So that deck that's there for the little eatery is the tape deck area. So deck in both senses.
Deck.
And then the cassette tape kind of design storefront there is named the mixtape. And that's where you can get your favorite mixed drink, whether that's like a margarita or a green smoothie, you know, whatever your style is. You get your mixed drink and your food, sit out on the tape deck, have a good time. And then the skate ramps are in the spots where the speakers would be for the boombox.
Right.
And there's an arcade set up there, so you can play Pac-Man or Tetris or Zelda. And then we also have, because anybody who skates knows that usually end up with a bruise or a scrape or two, there's these handy little first aid kits on the wall for you. So
that'll fix your broken neck, right? The little band-aids that we have in there.
We might need a helipad for that.
There's a healthy degree of danger in all of our treehouse worlds where you pretty much step into them at your own risk, but luckily it's your imagination, so you know you can have at it. But that's one of the images, and the other one is another kind of tree house sort of structure. We haven't put that one up yet, and so we're always trying to create these
That'll
worlds.
drop later today. On
we're trying
our Instagram.
And even if you read like the story behind it on our Instagram, it has a really detailed narrative that we try to build behind each piece, and so it's kind of a fun way to like reward the viewer with both the story that they can kind of read into and then spin off in their own directions and details visually that they can dive into as well.
Yeah, we purposely don't put people into our creations so that you can imagine you and your friends there, or you and your family. You know, like I'm going to live in the upstairs room and then I'm going to skate to your room on the other side.
Although I would like an angry panda in there. Maybe we'll have to get collabs with you.
Let's do it.
That was fun.
That'd be fresh. I want to see a real tree house like that.
Laughing panda.
Yeah.
Correction.
We got to collab with Treehouse Masters or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, and then do an NFT show in the treehouse.
Oh.
Yes. Need all of this, which actually ties into a question that the community just asked. So we have a series of questions that they've been posting. So I've carried those into our chat. But they wanted to know what it's like to work at a bigger project. So obviously murals are not small things. What's it like working with several artists, you know, kind of forging a similar path on not just a mural, but, you know, as you're working on this project collectively also, or now making your collab for tree houses, you know, is it something that's like a mutual inspiration? How do you work on these things together?
As husband and wife,
or
to clarify, or
everyone. So as husband and wife is definitely an interesting dynamic. And then as a mural community as a whole, like there's a lot going on here that we can talk about.
Gotcha. Yeah. We've been working together for almost 15 years now. So it's been a long time. We've worked together almost as long as we've dated. So there's both of those relationships that have to grow in tandem, right? But I think what we've learned over the years is just knowing each other's strengths. You know, what do we like? I mean, one of the reasons we first started dating in the first place is we were both surfers. So we would surf together after class, and we were both studying art. So we already knew we had art in common. We already knew we had surfing in common. Our favorite artists, we kind of discovered together or we shared together. So like Thomas Campbell, Swoon, Margaret Killigan, you know, Jay Ryan. Yeah, we just had a lot of the same, I guess, likes or Mobius, a lot of like world building type of artists, but then also like colorful or a little quirky.
Right.
And then we both kind of decided to do a painting about tree houses, and we just got a huge response with that, and that kind of just snowballed into doing murals with them, especially after we met Jasper, and everything that he was growing. It definitely grew that way.
But I think to answer the question about like what's it like to collaborate, and in our case, speaking for ourselves, like we are two different artists in separate, like we've developed this style that's kind of a homogenization of our assets, of our skill sets, and so what it's really about is, like any good collaboration is about flexibility and understanding when one person's skill sets should take over and the other person should, like, maybe stand back and allow things to kind of work itself out with the other person. So it's really, what's the word I'm looking for? Not collaborate. We're talking about like flexibility. It's about,
I think we have worked towards kind of a common goal.
Yeah.
Like, one thing for us is like our motto or kind of phrase that we always think about is, if Peter Pan was a LEED certified architect, what would he build? You know? So it's like sustainable Peter Pan. That's who we channel. So that's it's always guiding like our next projects, while we're working on something. Okay, does it have all the assets? Like if the Lost Boys are living in this house, does it have everything they need? Not just like food and energy wise, but like, is it fun enough? Like, okay, maybe we need to add another slide or something. Like, I don't think it's Max Rufio, out.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough Rufios stuff.
How about your greatest collaboration?
Oh, our little baby. Well, he's not a baby anymore.
Yeah, he's a 5-year-old
he's
now.
A 5-year-old.
Yeah,
boss.
We have our son. Yeah, we call him Tiny Boss.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
He's the real dictator of our time.
Well,
that we have a kid.
He's a harsh critic, I'd say.
Yeah,
it's difficult to please him, so we have to work hard.
He's used to coming to our job sites and hanging out, and so he'll just be like, I like the last one better, or like this part has too much pink, or that kind of thing. But what's been really fun actually with him is, because murals are at a large scale, we can actually have him paint areas of it, because even if he's doing some kind of like crazy painting, it's actually just taking up a relatively small area of the whole wall. And what was fun with the last mural that we did with the Worldwide Walls for 2020, the last time we did like the public one here in Honolulu, Kai just kind of started painting the little area just around the corner from our wall, and he, by the end of the week, kind of had his own little mural there, and we kind of squared it off so it looked kind of official. It wasn't too crazy on there, and it's still there, and people send us pictures of their kids in front of the mural. And I think that's part of initiatives like this, and what Jasper started to do from the beginning is just like, how can we make art more accessible and inspire other people, especially youth. So it's cool that Kai had his first mural at 3 years old.
Right. And like people who are awesome artists like Aaron are like just uncle, to him. And that's the kind of thing that's beautiful about POWWOW. And before maybe I hand this off to you, Aaron, I just want to say like how it was so cool for Roxy and I as artists to be rubbing shoulders with artists like yourselves, and just all the talent that comes in with a mural festival that Jasper has helped curate. And so that's also the benefit of collaborating, is just seeing everybody else's like hustle and talent on display. And so, yeah, that's what's great about murals.
Oh man, thank you, dude. Thank you. That means a lot, actually. Yeah. Some of my best work comes out when I collaborate. I never went to art school. I was a graffiti knucklehead, so I've always been out in the streets painting and stuff. But when I travel to different festivals, whether it be with POWWOW or the other festivals that I join up with, I meet all these amazing painters from all over the world. And Jasper created that bridge, and they bring them to my homeland, which is one of the most awesome things ever. And I just love to flex, with these guys that I meet, and we all have these crazy skills. And just like this husband and wife here, they take their skill sets and blend it together, and you got this like awesome shake of amazing taste. You know what I mean? And what I like to do is, the guys I've been painting with a lot, we kind of make these like ongoing adventure stories. So with Dragons Eternal and Jose Mertz and stuff. Like there's actually like a narrative behind each piece, and it's like we're traveling around the world and as warriors, and like just visiting different lands. And to do it in Hawaii was one of my favorite ones. We did this wraparound building, and that's my favorite piece we ever did together. But yeah, just seeing people's techniques and what they they bring to the table, it just amps me up, and it makes my work better, and vice versa with them. It's just like a good time, you know what I mean? It's a jam, and I love it. That's my favorite part of painting in the streets, is painting with friends.
Yeah, I would agree with all of them. I think one of the greatest parts of being an artist is being family with all these artists. That's when we do these festivals, considering the cost to make them happen, I don't pay myself. It's definitely a passion project, and all the artists volunteer their time and do it pro bono to support these communities. But one of the greatest things that comes out of it is we meet each other and we become friends, and then we become family. And that's happened countless times over the years, and those families continue to grow. And that's one of the greatest things that have come out of doing these kind of projects. And then when these happen, you're like, oh, let's who are you going to reach out to? And then I sent over a long list of artists, like, hey, these are all the artists that I would love to support that are from Hawaii, that have ties to Hawaii. But we could only pick a handful for this first one. So we want to continue supporting these artists and create platforms for them, and also working together. Outside of inspiring each other, we learn from each other. Because of the fact that we can watch each other's process, we can sort of see how we work. We can offer assistance, we can offer advice, and vice versa. And I've learned a lot just watching artists create. It's not only inspiring, but it helps to inform my own work and my own process as well. And so, and we hope to do that with the community, as they also witness artists creating, that they get inspired. I've had a bunch of people out here in Hawaii that have said that they've pursued art because they've come to the festival and seen artists work, and they want to do the same, and that their bucket list is to sort of paint a mural with us and join in within our community, and paint murals around the world. It's really sort of like, what better way to live than to sort of travel the world and paint. I think that's always been a lot of our dreams growing up. I was asked by someone's like, oh, what is your retirement plan? I'm like, when you do stuff that you love, that you're passionate about, like, there is no retirement plan, because I'll probably end up doing it forever.
I think that's really a really good point. Like the fact that, as you're doing the things that you love, and like the things that really bring a lot of meaning to life, like that's not really something that you retire from. Like you continue, finding ways to bring, that joy and that excitement, that hope to the communities that you're a part of. Like that'd be a hard thing, I think, to consciously step away from. Which is interesting. And as you mentioned, you're talking about, how for this particular initiative, you were only able to choose a couple people, from the community to participate. Which ties into a question that our community had asked, wondering, how you would characterize the awareness and reception of the NFT technology to the muralist and street art community. So as you were, kind of recruiting people for this, what were you seeing as the awareness and reception for NFTs? And I guess as you do the next round, what are you looking at for the adoption, say, next year even?
Yeah, so definitely, there's definitely a lot of interest amongst artists for the NFT community. I think a lot of artists are trying to figure out how to be a part of it, or even like what it is, or even like what cryptocurrency is. So with these kind of projects, we're hoping to help with those learning curves and assist artists and get them onto platforms like Makerspace, because Makerspace at the end is an invite only platform. You have to apply for it, and hopefully you get into it. And so it's not open for everyone. You have to apply and be accepted within Makerspace. So it's great to work with Aisha from Makerspace, and Roma, and Ellen from HTDC to sort of provide an access and a bridge to these platforms, and to get people to mint their first NFTs. So I think most artists are really interested. A lot of artists are really embracing it. For us, for me, the way I like to think of it is it's another avenue to get exposure for your work, another avenue to make a living through your art. Previously, you might have been doing commissioned work. You've been maybe selling original paintings, maybe prints, maybe toys, merch, etc. And NFTs is another way to sort of, become an artist full time, and to dedicate your life to your art, and that's always one of the hardest barriers of entry, sort of like being an artist. It's like, how do I make a living? The stereotype of a starving artist exists to this day. But then what people forget is that we're surrounded by art. From the clothes that we wear, the books we read, the movies we watch, the furniture we sit on, like we're surrounded by art, and so NFT is another way of like artists to be like, hey, I'm an artist, and now I can also have this avenue to sort of sell my work as an NFT, but also for like purely digital artists that never had the opportunity to sell originals. Because at the end, maybe at most you might be selling prints, and now you can, and that's been great for artists like people, So I know people, and he's come to Hawaii. We've hung out together, our kids and everything, and so for him, like it's been huge for artists like him and other artists that do a lot of digital work to sort of find ways to get their work out, and it's a whole new world for us, and I think a lot of us are learning how to sort of utilize it and be a part of it, and and add to it. And so we're still learning as we go along, but I definitely want to bring on more artists and get them more involved.
I think that will definitely be a huge benefit to the space, not just the metaverse, because obviously as we're bringing in, new types of artists, and not just traditional digital artists, but now we've got, muralists, we've got street art, we've got a lot of different types of art, a lot of different experiences, and, all of the experiences that you have and that you bring into the space are going to be very unique things that people can learn and grow as a result of, getting that experience translated here. And that's really exciting. And then it will also, as you mentioned, find alternate ways to support your art and your income, which will give you more means to be able to continue creating in your communities. So, it's, I think, a really awesome, possibility for, kind of having that connection between the two spaces, and, how they really do, kind of work together synergistically. And, it's just a matter of navigating the space and kind of learning through the adoption process, how to best leverage those, for your particular needs and your interests.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I'm like super excited about when I think about murals, they're very place-based. A lot of times, even when we do a mural, we're taking inspiration from the community around us. And so you create these places that become landmarks, tied to a location, a time, an experience, a group of people. And I think there's a really interesting opportunity for murals and NFTs to sort of be almost attached to the hip, where you could, just thinking down the line, like you could have a mural and this experience, and then you create an NFT that's somehow tied to that place. And so you're spanning the idea of uniqueness and one of one in the digital landscape by also connecting it to this mural, that every mural, no matter if you've painted that subject before, it is unique to the substrate of the wall, to the weather conditions that you had, and all of this kind of ties into like a really well-rounded experience. And so I think that's what I'm excited to see, what happens in the future with street art, like you're saying, the mural world and now the digital world just mashing together, and like what's going to happen. It's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, well, especially because we've talked previously about the whole process and how, murals are such a beautiful process that happens when you take this big blank canvas and then are able to put something amazing on it. But then through NFTs, if you're working digitally, you're able to do the time lapse of that being created as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then you could have the NFT of the mural process as a digital entity, right? And then, or just somehow augment maybe through VR the mural that's the NFT. Like there's just so many possibilities. It's really fun to think of. as a creative, and for us who are like storytellers, you know, how can you tell more sides of the story or make the story more immersive through these different media options?
Yeah, like so our boombox one, that's a mural in Kaka'ako. And it's so cool to be able to like now migrate it into this new world. And then the other NFT that we're going to be dropping, that one hasn't become a mural yet. And for sure we want it to someday, but that's just kind of like, now it's a new consideration in our whole process. It's like, okay, we also have to think of this new base of collectors and creatives who are out there who are watching, and be inclusive of that group, you know, that audience. Whereas it was before just the people who are like, you know, getting their smoothies and coffees and jogging and like, oh wow, cool, look at this mural happening. It's a widening world.
Yeah, that's actually something that's really beautiful, is it's not tied to the location, and that only those people who either live there or are able to visit being able to see it. But people from all over the world in different time zones, different locations, different kind of accessibility, being able to get it through this digital format. And then I think it also opens the avenue for collaboration. Like, we love being able to collaborate with other artists on murals and things like that. But that's also tied to excuse me, a location and a time and place, right? Schedules having to collaborate in a very specific way. But with the NFT collaborations, that just opens a whole nother avenue with who you're able to collaborate with. So
it's almost like a natural evolution of our, you know, our Zoom culture of just like being able to like get work done now without physically
being in the same office,
being in the same space. And it's had both positive and negative effects, but I think this is a positive effect for sure.
Well, it's a big experiment, right? And then I think what's also cool about that is when you're collaborating on a mural, everybody has to have a certain kind of capability surrounding painting. Like, a lot of digital artists not necessarily would feel comfortable painting on a wall, but they feel comfortable in their skills, you know, on whatever digital format that they're using. So you're able to collaborate with people who have different skills than you. It could be someone who's like your favorite DJ, and you're just like, hey, let's collaborate on an NFT. Like, let's talk about, you know, what image you want to do. We'll do the art, and then you do the music and attach that. So you're able to collaborate with people in a completely, you know, different mode.
In other words, it's hard to animate a mural, but it's not so hard to animate a NFT of a mural.
There you go.
Well, that I think ties into, I know we're getting close to the end of time, that actually ties into one of the very last things that the community had asked about was, you know, about, you know, potentially the future of NFT tech and murals, and maybe incorporating AR to add another draw to the physical location. So as you mentioned, it's easier to animate a digital mural than it is a physical one. But if you're using AR technology, then you could animate the physical space as well, which would be, you know, kind of interesting, either via QR code or, you know, some way to kind of tie the NFT and the AR space into the murals as well, which, you know, has a lot of cool possibilities, something to think about.
Yeah, we've done that in Kaka'ako. A few of our murals animate in AR. It recognizes through the camera the image of the mural, which is unique, and then it animates. It's about like adding layers of interactivity, right? I mean, we're trying to dabble in that. Just there's no real anything than just sort of creating more fun, you know, creating something that sort of is deeper for like for visitors and to sort of see their murals get animated, etc. And we've been doing also like projection mapping too. You know, we'll have projection mapping events in cities like Worcester. We did like 2. And where we'll have people come over, we'll do a projection map on a mural, and then it comes alive with music and animation. So we do that stuff as well, and those are always really fun to just sort of add these like more elements of interactivity, and that comes also with doing exhibitions. We did an exhibition at the Bishop Museum here where we try to make it more interactive, more immersive, and it's really about bringing people into like a new world, and which I still think exists with the metaverse, right? Or even other metaverses. Like my kids like love Roblox. They pretty much live in that digital world, that virtual world, and buy clothes for their characters and pets, etc. Make homes, etc. So it's only a matter of time before that all just sort of bridges, because we didn't grow up with that, but our kids grew up with it. and so they've adopted that technology since they were little. They exist. They already exist in two worlds. They already exist in the physical world and in the metaverse. Like they already are fully involved in that. And so as they get older, I mean, even myself, like I play Fortnite with my wife, and we have our own characters and skins that we sort of, and I also buy skins that my friends release. Like I always support it like this. Oh, I have a skin, and so I'm like, shoot, like Galen, you got a skin, and I'm buying all your characters. I'm playing characters and making videos and stuff. So, I mean, my wife and I, the only thing we do together these days is play Fortnite. That's it. Just play Fortnite with a bunch of 10-year-olds, and then we just get like destroyed.
Do the 10-year-olds talk trash? Because mine are expert at this, and
They do.
Like,
You're like, oh, the guy was so good, and then you hear them talk to you. You're like, oh, he's like 10.
yeah.
It's like, oh man, let's just stop playing this game.
Mine makes sure to let me know when I've not done the thing I was supposed to know to do.
Well, what I like to do is that I like to pretend that my wife is my mom. So I'll start blaming her. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? You got us. We lost again because of you.
Man. That's I feel this experience. Definitely a thing I've gone through before. This is good
in our attempts to connect with our kids, we like play all these games. Like I've played Roblox too, and I'm like, oh, what are we doing in this game?
But Roblox is, I mean, that's a really good example of what the metaverse, can and will be, I think. Being able to, pull that in. And, there's a lot of, even I've seen some of the things my kids are in Roblox that are like community created art walls. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
So, that's a really fun thing, and seeing, now having, your art here, which is impacting the community, but also, kind of melding that with the metaverse is really exciting to see.
Yeah, because Makerspace is putting all the artwork into the metaverse. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So this will be good. This will be something that, as you mentioned, kind of the youth and the next generation, these are the spaces they already exist in. So this will be, as we continue to evolve, very natural for them. And, it makes sense. And that's exciting.
Yeah, we have to like sort of adopt it, but then they're growing up with it.
Yes. Absolutely. So I don't want to hold you all much longer because I know we're a little bit over on time, and I really appreciate you coming to talk to the whale community about this initiative and the event and the drop tomorrow. Is there anything else that we need to cover? I know that the event is tomorrow. It looks like 1:30 p.m. Was it Hawaii Standard Time?
Yeah.
3:30 Pacific Time. So that'd be 6:30 Eastern Time. For all of our conversions. So that's when the drop happens on Makersplace, and it's something that, you all will have works available, and having proceeds go to, this amazing Worldwide Walls beautification project. Is there anything else that we need to share about that to make sure that people have everything they need to know before the drop?
Let's just go to Makerspace tomorrow, and then everything, any NFTs that are purchased also supports a good cause, with community beautification and also supporting artists. Yeah, so tomorrow at 1:30, we'll all of us have minted it, ready to go. We're just waiting to put it live, and excited to see the response.
Perfect. And so I will again link this into the Discord for everybody. When you get to Makerspace tomorrow, you will also be able to just go to the drops page, and it will be up similar to these other drops. So that's a good way to navigate.
Yeah, we're like I think we're a day before the baby shark drop.
Yes. Yes, that is also an exciting thing coming to the metaverse.
Yeah.
We'll be talking with them on Thursday. So
nice.
That's what our son would buy, baby shark.
Yeah, be all over baby shark.
My kids were terribly excited when I mentioned that this was on my to-do list. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool, Mom!" So I got bonus points for that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, "Well, that's. I guess I'm now the coolest mom ever. I'll take it."
Yeah, take those points while you can.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the meantime, we will continue promoting all the rest of the amazing art that you all are creating and the amazing cause that it is supporting as well. So community beautification and bringing joy and hope to folks who perhaps need a little bit more art and inspiration in their day. So
Thank you.
For sure.
all
Thank you.
so much for joining us today. And thanks, Whale community, for hanging out. We will be sure to keep tabs on the auctions tomorrow and keep in touch. So that way, as you are, continuing your adventures in the metaverse, we'll follow along and support you as you go.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, all. Have a fabulous rest of your day.
You too.
You too.